All right, we're on.
Okay, so I don't know how we start this. Dr. Stewart, I'm Jeff.
I'm Jessica.
Yeah, and we already know each other, so we're skipping the intros till next week till we have our official group with Berlin in the group. So Jessica and I know each other from previous classes and everything. So we're just going to get into it, and hopefully this works.
Yeah, all right. Let's go.
So there it is. Okay, so the first question when it comes to body language, I kind of wrote down, I don't know what it says. Do you have the curriculum pulled up that you're looking at? Or I just have basically how might I utilize the research and coaching and personal life when it comes to verbal communication? Is that right?
Um, I can't get out of here this time. Okay, so I'm sorry, one more time.
Yeah. It's basically taking the nonverbal, like the body language,
Right.
and how might either one of us utilize that in our coaching or personal life from just the research that we learned with the body language?
Oh yeah, I mean,
You want to go first?
yeah, sure. I mean, I was just writing about this earlier. Yeah, I think that I will, of course, I'll be watching for it. So I'll
Hmm.
be using it from that perspective, watching the coachee to see what they are communicating, to see if their words match up and are consistent with the way that they're with their body language and their facial expression and the tone of speech. And then also, I will be making sure that I'm using appropriate body language and I'm aware of myself in that moment when I'm listening and that I seem like I'm interested. I will be interested. um, and just yeah, make sure I'm just presenting myself in a way that's going to make them feel comfortable, make them feel, make them trust me. All the things that we need to have from the coachee to have a good growing coaching environment.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm probably on the same thing. It's been a good reminder. I have never really focused in or zeroed in and really like studied like the body language per se. I've always wanted, I mean, I guess the spy kid side of me always wanted to like get into when do you know someone's lying, you know,
Right.
and all, that stuff. But it's just been kind of a reminder because I do think it's a clue into where someone is at, but it's not necessarily always a defining moment or a defining like it's not always concrete, because I
Right.
think the way I responded to your post, I don't know if you remember that. You know what I mean? Like if someone has an upset stomach and they have to pass gas and they're just like, you know what I mean? And you think
Right.
they're just like churning. Well, no, they're upset and they're too embarrassed to say they have to fart.
Right. Exactly.
You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Exactly. Well, and there
Or,
are there are cases where people understand body language and they're not being honest with their body language
oh
because they
yeah,
want to make
yeah.
sure that they're portraying the right thing. So,
Yeah. And then there's like different cultures that different things, and I think with Jennifer's post, I mentioned something I referenced the story where George Bush got off a plane, George Bush Senior years ago got off a plane and he was like, off Air Force One, he's like,
right.
okay. And he basically that means a-hole in the
Right.
rest of the
That's
world.
not universal.
Yeah, could you imagine a foreign dignitary getting off and just flipping the bird? Hey
Right.
guys, I'm here,
Right. Yeah,
And so
exactly.
yeah, no, that body language, it's not all I'm trying I'm struggling to find the word. It's not necessarily all inclusive, but it is a piece of the puzzle to be looking at and be cognizant of
Right.
because you do want to read. Another
Right.
thing I don't think our material has gotten into, but the eyes also say a lot.
Oh, they totally do.
You know what I mean? And
Yes.
especially we live in a culture where, a lot of that eye contact, that's one of the things I'm thinking about, like going back to like COVID days, when we all had the mask and we had to look
Right.
into each other's eyes.
Right.
There was a lot of really good communication there. And then, of course, when we pulled the mask out, we're like, wow, I didn't think you looked like that,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
you know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, I agree. I think eyes, I mean, for me, I definitely pay attention to eyes and tone of voice. That's a big deal
yeah,
for me.
oh,
So those
absolutely.
two things. And as a therapist, I mean, I don't think I practice the mindfulness as much as I would now to
Yeah.
just be aware of all of the communication, everything. So,
Yeah, but there's one of those things where it is a tricky balance because I know my vibe to come across to people. And I do think me
Right.
being a little bit more aware of body language is important. But
Mhm.
I've also, over the years, when you talk to someone that is trained in this stuff and
Right.
they're like, and like everything is artificial.
Right.
And if I ever pick up someone being artificial, I'm like,
Yes.
that was my body language to closed off, by the way.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm just like, oh, I'm done with you because I'm like authenticity is really important to me, you know.
Right. Right.
And and so, it's like, some of these like therapists or counselors that I've run into or had interaction with, it's like, it's like, how are you doing? No, how are you doing? And it's just a stick. It's just you know what I mean?
Right.
And
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
no, people don't like that. I don't like that. Well, at least I don't like that. I don't know
No.
who
No.
does.
Right.
So there's a tricky balance where this stuff is important, but it can't be pulling the cart. You know what I mean? It needs to be the horse needs to pull the cart of what you're really picking up and your intent from even where you're at with it, and then let these things kind of be clues to enhance like our effectiveness as a coach.
Right. Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
the way I look at it.
Right. And I think a big piece of it, and I mean, I would suspect that we are going to get some difficult information when we're in a coaching session with coaches where
Yes.
where we're going to have to not react.
Sure.
So just always being aware, like in that moment, to not like what's, or just
But
be
see, the
too
thing is,
surprised.
yeah, but you're a parent, I'm a parent. We learned that poker face a long time ago when we're like disciplining our
Right,
kid when they're
right, yes,
small.
right.
And what they've done is absolutely wrong and
Hilarious
hilarious
though.
and everything. And you're just like poker face. And in the back of your mind is like, this is awesome. We're going to talk about this the rest
Yeah,
of your life.
exactly. But yeah, I've had some, as a therapist, just a lot of shocking information, like
Yeah.
shocking information that I'm just have to be, take it as it's just normal, and not show judgment, even though inside I'm like,
Or they finally confess something to you and you're like,
yeah,
no, you
what?
did what?
Are you serious?
Oh my gosh.
Right. Yeah.
I would never do that in a million. Yeah, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just making sure that you're just not.
Yeah. And I think another point that's really valid in this, and this is stuff that me and you have talked about, but I think it's important in conversations when we're looking at body language and everything, is we got to also be cognizant of which lens we're looking through life in, is how
Yes.
we're going to read it also. And if we're
Absolutely.
looking through a scarcity lens
Yes.
and we're looking for negative body language, guess what? We're probably going to find it. We're
Mhm.
probably going to nitpick it,
Absolutely.
right? But if
Right.
we're looking for abundance and we're looking, so we need to make sure that we're also in the right frame of mind to do this.
Absolutely.
So okay, so here's a question for you. So if you had to rank the importance of body language in a coaching therapy session or whatever, and I don't even know what the right scale is because I'm just doing this off the top of my head, like I
Right.
do most things in life. But like from 1 to 10 with importance, where do you rank, like for you personally, like what body language is and importance in a session when you're working with someone? Would you rank it up as like a 10 is like vitally important? Would you rank it down as like a 2? Is it's part of the puzzle somewhere? Do you see what I'm getting at? Does that
Yeah.
make
I
sense?
I think that I think it's just part of the communication, the package that comes with communication.
Hmm.
I think it's just as important because, even in personal relationships, as you know, you don't always get the body language that matches the words
Yes.
or the tone that matches the words. So you have to take it all, put it together. And, in a professional environment, yeah, you can, you know, observe and you can ask questions, and be unassuming and just try to get to, you're especially when you're learning a person, because you might learn that, some body languages with a person might just be something they do all the time. And you might learn that it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Or someone else, you might get a lot of messages and that might have a lot of meaning and they might be super uncomfortable. There might be something going on. They could have something going on at home. So I think
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
just have to really get to know the person and
So
figure
would it be
it
fair to
out.
say that there's a lot of like body language and everything is not a clear cut science, and there's a lot of variables that are contributing to that that we need to be cognizant of and aware of also when we're looking at that.
I think so. I mean, I think there are obviously universal things like
Yeah, yeah.
smiling, laughing, although laughing, someone might laugh because they're nervous,
No,
not because
absolutely.
they think something's funny. I mean, there's just
If I get scared, I laugh.
right. Yes. If I'm nervous, I'll laugh. If
Yeah.
I'm sad, I'll laugh. If I'm
I think that's why we get along. I think we both do the same thing. It's like laughing is the go-to thing.
I'm a laugher. Yeah.
It's
So,
also it's a strength and a mask.
right. But so when you think about that for myself in a coaching environment, then I have to be careful that I'm not laughing inappropriately because that could make
Yeah.
the person feel uncomfortable because they might not know me enough to know that, oh yeah, she just laughs all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been known to laugh when someone shares something because of my own experience with like painful relationships. Like
Mm.
someone else shares something that's absurd, and I'll laugh because I understand the
Right.
absurdity. I'm not laughing at the fact that it was like I was like, oh yeah, it's crazy. I know exactly what you
Yes,
mean.
I get
But
it.
suddenly I just started laughing. I'm like, no, that was not the right emotion at the time.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think
So
that,
yeah, I think I would rate all this like body language and everything is maybe a 2 or a 3 on the scale of
hmm,
like 10. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
piece of the puzzle, but I'm not going to put too much into it, but I am going to be aware of it. Is
right.
kind of the way I go, with it, you
Mhm.
know. And I think you're bringing up a great point there because when you're talking about like you've lived all over this country and all over the world. And so like if you talk to someone like in the East Coast, like from New York,
Right.
they're expressive and they're aggressive and it's like, why are
Right.
you mad at me? Why are you yelling at me? We're
Yes.
not. We're
Right.
just Oregonians. We're West Coast people,
We're
you
just
know?
still, yeah. Yeah, it's very true. I mean, and there are certain customs, that come in body language that are not, they're like being in Korea, I mean, it was just different. So as an American walking around, it was different and you could tell the difference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
But,
important. So definitely
mhm.
will, and then yeah, I mean I'll utilize it, but I won't overemphasize it would probably be the accurate way
Right.
for me to answer
Yeah.
that. You
Yes.
know.
Yes. Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%, you know. Um So how the second one was like, how has my view changed on body language? Can't say it has. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's part of for me, the way how to articulate this, for me, I think I have a disposition to read people and to get along with people and have people feel comfortable around me. And so it's part of it, but it's not something I'm actively aware that I'm doing by reading their body language.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I
Right.
do, and I even caught myself like, okay, because I substitute teach, and I'll ask kids like all the time, hey, how because I don't see them every day because I'm not the regular teacher, but I do see them quite a bit. Hey, how's it going? And often you get the, oh, fine, and I'm like, that was very unconvincing,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
oftentimes when I say that, it opens them up, to share a little bit more of what's going on or whatever, because we're all conditioned to have formulaic communication where it's, how are you? I'm fine. I
Right.
didn't care how you were doing and you're not fine. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
It's just a
Exactly.
formula.
Right.
But part of that I'm probably reading with them is not only the tone, inflection in their voice, but it's also their body language and how they're saying it. But I do it
Right.
instinctively. So I don't think it's changed that much for me. What about you?
Yeah. I don't think that. I mean, I think that I don't know. What do you think about? I mean, just being more in tune to people's body language has a lot to do with being an empath.
Yeah.
I mean,
Say that again.
I think a lot of being very in tune to other people's body language might have a lot to do with being an empath.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So I mean, well, it has to do with a lot of things, but I'm just very hyper aware of, how people are acting, So if I'm in a meeting, I mean, I'm really like picking up on everybody's body language and,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's just something that I do. And I also think that it can, I won't go there, never mind. That would be a long conversation.
Because you're going to say it's a two-edged sword and how we can go about doing that. Because there's a healthy way we can be an empath picking up
Right,
people, but it
right,
could also be a fear-based way of doing it because
right,
we are afraid of what people think. How are they do? Are they comfortable? All
right.
fear-based, which makes it not as effective, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that could be a long conversation into like thinking about why people act a certain way, because I think that I am more in tune to people's body language because of the way I was brought up,
Yes.
because I'm just hyper vigilant about, is that person okay with me? Is that person okay with me? Did
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do okay? So I mean, just being aware of that other people might be that way too. So
Yes.
there's that. But then another thing that I've thought about this week, I mean, I don't think that my view on body language has changed at all, but I know someone brought up in class the topic of like people with autism
Yeah.
and facial um, yes, um, yeah, nonverbal communication and social skills. I mean, they don't always present in the typical way. So,
Hmm.
and it's interesting because it makes people uncomfortable
Yes.
because it's not what people normally do. So, in my mind, that speaks to how important body language is.
Yes.
So, I don't know. I mean,
But see, what I found more effective, and obviously outside of this Zoom meeting, Dr. Stewart, we've talked about this a lot,
yes.
is the thing I found more effective is going after the fear in people's life and where they're at. You know what I mean? Seeing, are they in a kind of a false identity where they're fear-based thinking, like
Mhm.
that's something one, everybody can relate to each other on fear because we all experience it, but that seems to be more of a telling signal of things than necessarily just body language. It's kind of the whole package.
Yeah,
I don't think
for sure.
I don't think we do live in a society. Oh man, that's a whole nother topic. Okay. Focus.
It's
Because
not black
again,
and white. It's not
yes,
black and white.
we think more Hellenistically here, which
Mhm.
means we more just have a linear way of thinking about things. And I think it does a disservice where like Hebraic thinking, not thinking of the Hebrew, religion at all, but Hebraic thinking is always more all encompassing,
Mhm.
where like a lot of their concepts have like hope is tied to a, rope, or some kind of physical manifestation of their concept. Like it's more of a holistic look at a whole idea, where Hellenistic's more just a linear look at it. And we here in the West, we look at things very linearly. Am I making up words now? I'm trying to sound scholarly.
I know
I'm
what you mean.
masters, you know. But I think that's a disservice when it comes to body language. I don't think that's fair to the other person because if you've ever been on the other side where people are going to judge you by
Mhm.
body language or
Right.
judge you
Mhm.
without hearing you out, and I think we've been in those cases a
Right.
lot.
Yes.
When you
Yes.
work with narcissists, yes, that happens a lot. That is also a very painful, frustrating thing to go to. So I don't want to flip around and just be trying to think I'm some savant that can read everything perfectly. So I
Right.
would look at it more holistically, Hebraically, looking at the whole picture, not just one little aspect
Mhm.
of what they're doing,
Right.
you
For
know.
sure. Absolutely.
So
Yep.
yeah.
So what's the next one? We better move
The,
on. We're gonna.
yep, the next one. Look, we're not even close to 40 minutes yet, are we?
I I would be surprised. I mean, I didn't notice what time we started.
Yeah, either way.
I mean, I wouldn't
So
be surprised if I mean, we're getting to high
yeah.
20s. Yeah.
So the last one where it's like going through and looking at the other people's video posts and
Hmm.
kind of rating their body language and critiquing it. And I went back through that today when I was at work
Hmm.
and I found it non-conclusive because it's kind of a bunch of headshots, and the
Right. It's not
only
a natural environment.
it's not a natural environment for me to really pick up on a lot of body language. The
Right.
only thing I noticed was you can tell distinctly in their body language of who was reading a prepared script. You know what I mean? And who was winging it. And I
Right.
wasn't
Right.
the only one that winged it.
Right. Of course.
There
Yeah.
were, oh, I forgot who her name was, but I think she did it in her car on her phone. You can tell she was
Yeah.
just talking.
Yeah.
And, like I did that with intent because that's more important to me to like be authentic than to be scripted out like that. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right. Yeah, I think
It's
you
like,
meant Carissa's video. Is it Carissa?
I think
Long
so.
dark hair.
Yeah, curly hair
Yeah,
and yes.
I thought her video was done very well.
Yeah, no,
It's very
absolutely.
natural compared to some.
But you could tell it wasn't scripted, you know. So
Right,
for me, if I'm looking for someone for a coach, I'm like, oh, Carissa, I'm going to
right,
gravitate
right,
toward
right,
that
right,
because of that approach instead of some but that's not saying the other polished things was wrong.
right. Yeah.
It's just it's just yeah, I don't even know what to say with it. It's just kind of a thing. So I
See, we're
didn't
running out of time already.
that's funny.
Yeah. So
So
yeah. So I think that, yeah, I mean, I think that for one, a lot of people were nervous, because not everybody's comfortable with that, and it's an assignment. So I mean, it's not necessarily something that you can get a lot of read of coaching type body language or anything like that. So,
yeah, no,
but,
100%.
but interesting to say the
Yeah.
least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, we made it through our first, yeah, air high five.
Woohoo!
One thing I'm disappointed when there was no need for you to give air quotes.
Oh, I know. I thought about that. I thought about that. I need to do
Yeah,
those.
you need to do, air